So good afternoon, everyone. We will be working on writing today, and the main session of the writing is today is about summarizing information. We have been working on writing for the last couple of weeks. There is an exercise which we have just left on the previous page. We will be working on it later when we come back from after completing the writing and speaking. Whatever exercises are left, we will complete them later. All right. Is it clear, Mariam, now?
Yes, yes.
All right. So here we will be working on how to summarize information. Okay. So look at the chart here. Look at the chart. Look at this bar graph and look at question 1, 2, and 3. Question 1, first of all, look at the bar graph. It says trends in landline telephone ownership. Mean there is some kind of information given about landline telephone ownership in different countries. The countries are given down here. It's Brunei Darussalam, then Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and the years are 2000 to 2005, 2002, 2002, 2004, number of landline telephones per 1,000 people. All right, and these bar graphs are given here starting from Brunei Darussalam and ends with Vietnam. Okay, look at question 1 here. Question 1, work with a partner together. Work with a partner together. Take 2 minutes to examine the chart below. What does the vertical axis represent? The vertical axis represent. Question 1, what does the vertical axis represent? Please answer this question first, and then we will move on. What does this vertical axis represent?
Number of landline telephones per 1,000 people.
That's right. Number of landline telephones per 1,000 people. That's right. Move on to number 2. Discuss what the chart shows and identify some important points. Now, what does the chart show and what are the important points here? Okay, we'll move on to question number 3. Consider which tense you will use most for your answer. Someone has already, I think Anisa said past tense, simple past. Yes, because it's 2000, 2002, 2004. So mainly we will use past tense. Yeah, thank you, Arich. It's passed. That's right. We move on. Now we move on to question number 4. Follow the instructions 1 to 6 to write the description of the chart. Number 1. So before we move on to this one, let's discuss slightly in more detail what is this chart represent. Okay, if you see here on the vertical axis here, this side, it says number of landline telephones per 1,000 people, and it gives you the year as well. I mean, look at the brown color here. This brown color represents 2000, the year 2000, and the next color, this one, okay, a blue, that represents 2002, and the green one, this one here, is 2004. So you can see here in Brunei Darussalam, this country, mean in 2000, like 250 people were having landline phones, and you can see in 2000 the number slightly, in 2002 number slightly increased, but in 2004 the number decreased. This one, if you see the green color. Same if you look down to Cambodia, the brown color is 2000. It was very few number of people, less than 50, and even in 2002 it was less than 50, but in 2004 the number increased, it reached to 50. And Indonesia, it was just like in 2000 less than 50, and even in 2002 it was less than 50, and then 2004 we don't have the detail for that. The next one, Lao PDR, very few people were using from 2000 to 2002. Next one, Myanmar, very few people. Then Philippines, you see there is a gradual decline in the number of people. It was reaching towards 100 in 2000, which came down in 2002, and the further decline in 2004. Then comes Singapore, the highest number of people using landline telephones, is the maximum number of people are using landline in Singapore. And when you go for the further details, you see in 2000 more than 450, and the number slightly decreased in 2002, and there is a further decline. It reached to about 450 in 2004. Thailand, the number was in 2000 it was less than 100, but in 2002 it increased to some extent and it reached to 100. Then Vietnam, it was less than 50 in 2000, and in 2002 it reached to 50, and in 2004 it increased little bit, in more than 50 in 2004. So this is like some kind of information which we can compare, and we can see the maximum number of the landline phone owners are in Singapore, this one, and the second most is Brunei Darussalam, this one, okay, and the third number you can say Philippines and Thailand, and the least one is Myanmar, and the rest of the, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 countries are below 100. So in your comparison, when you're writing about all this, you can share all this kind of information. Okay, so now we move on to the questions here. Question 1. Okay, question 1 says, write one sentence. Okay, okay, thank you, Mariam. Write one sentence which states what the chart shows. Now please write one sentence and tell me what does the chart show. What does the chart show? Okay, that's question number one. You will write a sentence about what does this chart show. You can, yeah, okay, someone has already written here. The chart shows number of people having landline telephone over countries in 3 years. That's right. It's a very good example. The chart shows, okay, or I have an example here with me. It says the graph shows the number of telephones owned per thousand of the population in different countries over a 5-year period, or from 2002 to 2005. Okay, so the graph shows the number of telephones owned per thousand of the population in different countries over a 5-year period. So that is your introductory statement, which you can make when you are interpreting the chart. Okay. Then there is another example. The chart shows number of people having landline telephones over countries in 3 years. I think it's not 3 years, it's a period of 5 years from 2000 to 2005. Okay. Then there is another one. The chart shows the number of people used telephone lines in different countries in 3 years time. Okay. All right. Number two, write two sentences which give an overview of the chart, like summarizing the whole thing. The chart is like what kind of information the chart explains, what kind of information the chart provides. Okay, the overall information what we are getting is overall the number of phone owners per thousand of a population like is varied. It's like different considerably. However, numbers tending to fall in countries with the highest level of phone ownership, whereas number generally rose in countries which had fewer phone ownership in 2000. Yeah, mean those who had less number of landlines in 2000, with the passage of time the number increased in those countries, the number of landline ownership, and the number which was going on the higher side, with the countries which were having on higher side, that went to slightly downward trend. If you look at Singapore as an example, I mean, from 2000 to 2004, the number went down. But if you see Cambodia, the number from 2000, it was like very low, which increased in 2002, and it further increased in 2004. So there is a gradual increase. Same is the case with Vietnam. So there is a gradual, but at the same time, there is like gradual fall when you look at Singapore and the chart. So that is the second example, how we can write an overview of the chart. Now, write two sentences about Singapore. Can you write like two sentences? What do you see? What kind of trend you see in the Singapore? Okay, when you look at Singapore, what kind of trend is showing there? Okay, write two sentences about Singapore. Okay, maximum people of Singapore used. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Singapore is the country with the highest number of landline telephones. One, yes, that's right. Now, can you make some comparison in Singapore? The number from 2000 to 2004, was it the same or slightly changed or declined or something like that? One example can be, by far, the highest level of phone ownership was in Singapore, where just under 430 per thousand were owners in 2004. The figure is slightly lower than the 2000 figure of around 460 per thousand. So you can see here that in 2000, the figure was more than 450 per thousand. But in 2002, the figure slightly decreased and it reached to 450 people. And there was a further decline in 2004, and the number reached to just about 450, no, less than 450. Let's say 425, around that. So in 2000, it was on peak. Later in 2000 year, it was slightly declining, but in 2004, it became at its lowest point. Yeah, that's right. Someone says Singapore was the highest rank of landline telephone ownership among all. Its number was declining from 2000 to 2004. That's a good example. Then Aruna says number of people having telephone line in Singapore is maximum in 2000. Number of people decline in 2004. That's good examples. Two sentences about Singapore. Now we move on. Write one sentence about Brunei Darussalam. Can you write one sentence? One sentence is very clear that this is the second country which has maximum number of landline users in the world, after not in the world, after Singapore. But then now you can also explain how is the trend. Is it increasing, declining, falling, rising, slightly increasing, gradually? You can write one or two sentences about Brunei Darussalam. I have an example with me. In Brunei Darussalam, the second highest levels of phone ownership was recorded. Mean Brunei Darussalam is the country where the second highest level of phone ownership is recorded, and the number fluctuated. Yeah, that's a good example. The number fluctuated around 250 per thousand level across 5 years. Okay, so these can be like good examples. First, Brunei Darussalam is the second country after Singapore which has the highest number of people using landline phones. Secondly, the number is fluctuating under 430, okay, per thousand peoples. Mean it was like in 2004 the number slightly increased, but 2002 the number slightly increased, but in 2004 it went down again. So someone, I think Wahawa giving, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name in a wrong way. Brunei Darussalam achieved its maximum number of landline telephone in 2002, as it was the second largest one after Singapore. That's a good comparison. You can also use the word fluctuation. Because this is fluctuating. It was down, then went up, then went down again. So that's some kind of showing it's not stable, it's fluctuation going on. So you can add that. Okay, now one more example. Write one sentence about Cambodia and Vietnam. Write one sentence about Cambodia and Vietnam. Please write one sentence about Cambodia and Vietnam. I think, if I'm not wrong, we have a participant with us, Wahyu. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing it right. He or she is from Vietnam, if I'm not wrong. All right, so it's good your name, the country's name is coming there. So we need one sentence about Cambodia and Vietnam. Vietnam is coming at the end. The number in 2000 was below 50, and in 2002 it reached to 50, and in 2004 it reached even above 50. So you can make one sentence that the number increased or declined or remained stable or fluctuating, or you can write one sentence about that. One sentence about Cambodia and Vietnam. One example is countries like Cambodia and Vietnam had much lower levels of phone ownership, and these increased up to 2004 rather than decreasing. Yeah, I mean, Cambodia and Vietnam had less number of people, less than 50, using landlines, but that number has increased gradually from 2002 to 2004. The number has not declined, it has further increased. Okay, or you can see that these are the two countries where the number is like increasing from 2000 to 2004. So I'm still waiting for your answers here. Can you make your own examples about Cambodia and Vietnam? Or another example of Cambodia and Vietnam? Okay. Any other example of Cambodia and Vietnam? Okay. Okay, we move on to number 6. Okay. Okay, Mariam has Cambodia and Vietnam have very less number of landline users as compared to other countries, but that number is increasing. As you see the trend, the number is increasing in both countries from 2002 to 2004. There is gradual increase. So please mention that in your comment. We move on to number 6. Conclude with the final sentence about the remaining countries. Now you can write one or two more sentences. Wahyu is saying, even though Cambodia and Vietnam's proportion was, lesser than Philippines and Thailand, but their numbers were gradually escalating by the passing of time. That's good word, escalating. That's right, and it's a good example. This is how we can just write it down. Okay, now one more sentence. It's perfectly all right. Wow. If I'm pronouncing I'm again worried about your pronunciation of your name. Okay, so looking at the last question here, conclude with the final sentence about the remaining countries. Can you make one or two more sentences where you can compare some other countries like Indonesia or Philippines or Thailand? Thailand is, I think, the third largest country. So I have an example with me. In the remaining countries, the number of landline phone owners remained below 100 per thousand level between 2000 and 2004. Mean, in other countries, the number remained below 100 per thousand level from 2000 to 2004. Okay, so that now if you put all these sentences together, you will have the number of words, 150 words required. Okay, so now let me read the whole thing one more time. Yeah, someone, Mariam says, remaining countries, number of users remain less than 100 people from 1,000. Yes, that's right. Now, let me read. I wish I could show you, but today I have some problem. I can't show you the other screen, which I normally show, but I can read it for you now. Now, see how when you put all these sentences together, it will form your whole answer. And it says here, listen to me very carefully. It says the graph shows the number of telephone owner per thousand of population in different countries over a period of time. Overall, the number of phone owners per thousand of the population varied considerably. However, number tended to fall in countries with the highest level of phone ownership, whereas numbers generally rose in the countries which had fewer phone owners in 2000. By far, the highest level of phone ownership was in Singapore, where just under 430 people per thousand were owners in 2000. This figure is slightly lower than in 2000 figure of around 460% per thousand. In Brunei Darus Salam, the second highest level of phone ownership were recorded. And then the numbers fluctuated around 250 per thousand level across the 5 years. Countries like Cambodia and Vietnam had much lower level of phone ownership, and these increased up to 2004 rather than decreasing. In the remaining countries, the number of landline phone owners remained below the 100,000 level between 2000 and 2004. So this is, if you put all these sentences together, you will have 150 words, and that is the requirement of your answer. So this is one example. It did not ask you to write your answers as a whole. It asks you to write in different sentences. And in exam, you can just, uh, you will not write in different sentences. You will write in a paragraph, but the whole thing is all about this. You can form like two paragraphs or three paragraphs, or it depends. Okay, we move on. Okay, there is another example here. I'm not going to discuss this one because it is almost the same thing. You can do it on your own, and then if you don't understand anything, I can discuss this with you. Okay, this is very simple here. This is about obesity. You know, obesity, being fat. Obesity prevalence among adults by sex, mean by males and by females. How, like the number of people, like men and women, what percentage is this? The line, this brown color, is the women, and the bottom one is the men. So this is a kind of comparison how the number of people have gone fat or obese, and there is like bar graph, sorry, not the line graph. It shows the percentage from 1994 to present. Okay, so I'm not going to go in detail. My plan is to speed up a little bit more and finish the writing and go on speaking, and then we can come back and complete the remaining tasks which we have not completed. Okay, so I will do something which, there is another one here. This is about school children spend different like hours per week, and then the years. It's almost the same thing, and it's not difficult to understand. You can do it on your own, and if you write something about it, and I can check for you. Now, main about the line graph, bar chart, we have done enough practice. You should not have any problem understanding this one. The thing is, the steps are the same. First of all, try to understand what is this line graph and bar chart is about. Write two sentences about like as a introduction of the whole thing. What is it? What is this bar graph about? What is this line graph about? And then try to explain individually different things, comparisons and all that. And at the end, you can write some like concluding statements in 2 or 3 sentences. Okay, I'll move on. Yes, there is something different that's called explaining the process. Okay, for example, when you look at this picture here, okay, um, sometime in like previously we have discussed that it gives you some kind of bar graph, line graph, pie chart, number line, and you make some kind of comparisons. But sometime it gives you a kind of diagram or a picture, and they ask you to explain the process. Okay, so like in this picture, it is going to ask you how something works, how something happens. Okay, just say something in the chat if you think everything is going well and you are understanding and getting it, because sometimes when I don't hear anything, I feel something is wrong. Okay, so this is a new different task. We haven't studied this before. That okay, everything is going well, that's fine. So this is like explaining the process. This is something we are going to discuss. Can I have someone who can read it for me?
Should I read?
Yeah.
Okay. IELTS writing test practice highlights the main stages of a process. Just as you select the main points of a chart, you need to summarize the main stage of a process as they are shown in the diagram. How to approach the task? Look
Okay.
at the start
Okay,
and...
Mariam, just a minute.
Okay.
You understand what is process?
Yeah, by step by step.
Okay, so process is like you explains how something happens, how something works, right? And you just summarize the whole thing. You summarize the whole process, how something works. Okay, when you have a question like how to explain the process, what is something you should do? This is something we are going to discuss now. Please read the first part.
Look at the start and end of the process and consider what it shows overall.
Can you explain it?
Yeah, they're saying that first look at the start and then at the end of the process, and try to make a guess at what is going overall, like what they are showing.
From the beginning till end. Okay. Next.
Like divide the process into a number of logical stages. Like okay.
Like
Then
what?
they're saying when you have a complete process, divide like into the different part. Like first thing is happening here, the main basic thing. Then the second thing, like if for example I'm talking about some industry, like first they cut the vegetables, they wash them, then second step they cut them, then they fry them. You can say like that. So they are
Okay,
saying
you tell things step by step in a sequence, in a logical way.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Think about how you should rephrase some of the labels.
Okay,
How
yeah.
you should rephrase some of the labels. Like how we can tell in our own words.
No, yeah, rephrase means some of the names, some of the words, vocab words, you tell them in your own words, you explain, you simplify, you rephrase.
Okay.
Okay, some terminologies, some vocabulary, some words, how you explain those labels, how you give more information about those labels.
Okay, understood.
Next.
Then decide on some verbs and tenses to use. Okay. Like when you are telling to somebody else, you should decide some verbs and the tenses.
What does it mean?
Like when you are telling about this process, use some verb like making, or you can say the
Yeah, I
different
mean
verbs.
you will tell the process in present, or
Past
past
or
or
future. Yeah.
future, or what kind of vocab words or verbs you are using. Is it good to tell in the past or present or future, right?
Yeah.
Next.
Yes. Consider how you could round off your answer, like how we can summarize our answer, or how we
Yeah,
can tell it
yes.
briefly.
Me, exactly. How round off your answers, how you can, after completing the whole, how can you explain the whole process in a way that it is understood by the, uh, from you, and it's very clear, and you summarize the whole thing and you don't miss any important detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, continue, please.
Then work with a partner together, look at the task on the next page, and then discuss these questions.
Okay, actually, I put these pages on that one note, as I do every time, where you can see the process and you can answer. But now we cannot see both, so we will try to look at question one. It says, "Can you rephrase the task introduction in your own words?" Number two, which keywords in the labels do you... Okay,
Need to.
let's look at question one. Can you rephrase the task introduction in your own words? Okay, look at the task here. Please read the topic.
The diagram below shows how raw materials are used to make plastic products. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparison where relevant.
Now, can you rephrase the information in your own words? Like the diagram below shows how raw material are used to make plastic products. Okay.
Here we are going to look on the making of plastic products using raw materials.
Yes, this diagram explains how raw material can be used to make plastic things, or how can we make plastic products by using
Raw
raw
materials.
materials. By using raw materials, how to make plastic products, right? Um, that is one way. The process diagram below describes as the expenditure of plastic products made from raw material. Yeah, it can be. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So after this question, the second question says, that is number B, which keywords in the labels do you not need to rephrase? Which keywords in the labels you don't need to rephrase? Okay. So the first one, the model answer says, the diagram illustrates the stages in the production of plastic items. The diagram illustrates or explains. Okay, if you look at the diagram here, what does the diagram say? Can you just for like 2 minutes look at the diagram and see what does it say? Starting from raw material, you can just take 2 minutes and see how everything works. Okay, if someone uh, got the whole thing, you can explain it in few words.
Should I try to explain it?
Someone is saying the process is started by collecting raw materials from oil refinery. Yeah, it actually starts from here. From here, as you see here, it's starting from here. Then it goes to the raw material. From raw material, it's long molecules of plastic, and then it goes to plastic granules. Then there is a pressure oven, and it goes down to these kind of things here: injection, modular, melts plastic and forces into mold, and from that molds releases products, make the products, then the quality control checks the products, and then it goes to the packaging section. After being packed, it goes to warehouses, and I think from warehouses it goes to the markets, and then it goes to the consumers, and then the process starts again. So this is like something as a whole. So here we can see that question A, can you rephrase the task introduction in your own words? We did. The diagram illustrates the stages in the production of plastic items. So that was question 1. Second one, which keywords in that labels you do you need to rephrase? They are like keywords. What are the keywords? The most important words in this diagram. For example, plastic. Okay, plastic is one word.
Raw material.
Sorry.
Raw material.
Yeah, it can be. Oven is another word. Molecules, mold, quality. These are like the main words here. C, which words could you try to rephrase? I mean, you can rephrase like forces, pushes, releases,
Granules.
comes out. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Next one, D, what other vocabulary do you know that would be useful to describe this, describe the equipment or process? Yeah, this is important. What vocab words will you use to describe this process? I wish I could write down, but that page is not available, so I can only say it, or you can share the words with me in chat. What words do you think you need to describe? What words? Okay. What words do you think are important when you describe this kind of process? Yes, like you, what kind of words can you use to describe the process? This is like a variety of words. Yeah,
Transfer, converted, like.
yeah. I mean, it can be like you use words heat, discard, observe, check. Okay.
Molded.
Another like all the words which are mentioned in the process can be used, like plant, tanker, drum, rectangular, narrow, belt, box. Okay. Hardened, flawed, material, molten, plastic. Okay, different words can be used here. It's not like any specific word or just few words. Okay, the next question is the E. What linking words might you use here? Linking words, we studied linking words before. What linking words can you use to describe this process? What linking words afterward? Yeah, that's right. We can say
Furthermore.
furthermore. Yes.
At the end.
At the end, finally.
In the beginning.
At the end, finally, eventually. In addition, that's good. Yeah. Firstly, initially, after that, as a result, also, eventually, when, once. once something is done, the next step, firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally, to begin with. Yeah, that's good, Umara, that's great. To begin with, firstly, prior to, yes, in addition, furthermore, as a result, to conclude, finally, yeah. Different words can be used here. Okay. To sum up, yes, that it's like just all the words which we can use to explain the process, you know. We can choose certain and use them according to the situation which we have now, right? Okay, so this was explaining this process thing. Okay, and here now, can someone try to explain the process? You can take like 2 minutes, and I want someone to try to explain how this process works from raw material to the product which reaches to the warehouse. How it works. Anyone can try?
Should I try?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes, please.
At first, we have some waste material from an oil refinery.
No, first of all, can you tell me an overview of the what is this process about?
Okay. This process is about the stages of like how plastic products are made from the raw material, which comes from the oil refinery. Like at first, we have the some raw
Okay,
material from.
wait. Can I just rephrase something you have said, but in a better way?
Yes, you can.
Okay, we can say the diagram illustrates. Now look at the vocab. Instead of using just common words, the diagram says, the diagram shows, the you can say the diagram illustrates the various stages in the production of plastic items. Clearly, this is a complex process that requires a range of equipment and machinery, and at some stages, skilled workers. This is like your intro about this, explaining the process. Okay, now start from the first thing initially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Initially, we have some raw materials from oil refinery. Then, after analyzing this raw material is transferred to a high pressure oven where it is melted at high temperature. And
Excellent, excellent. I want you to stop here. Exactly, you said the right thing. What is something initial? But you need to polish your language and your vocab. Let me say the same thing, exactly the same thing, but in different words. Initially, the raw materials have to be transported from the oil refinery to the plant. On arrival, they are poured into a large drum, and from there they pass into a special oven which heats the material at high pressure so that long molecules of plastic form. To form the large molecules, okay, so they put it in some kind of heavy pressure. So now you started something, given an overview, then you started from oil refinery, the raw material comes, and then you continued, you mentioned the oven and high pressure situation, and continue please now. Now this one can be your first paragraph, okay? Okay, and
from the
then
high
you, yeah, after that,
From the high pressure oven, it is transferred to a long plastic molecules, from where, in the form of a granules, this all plastic is transferred into a molder, which melts the plastic again and forces it into some mold to get a proper shape.
Excellent. Exactly. This is how you explain the process. The only thing is, I will say the same thing, but in different words. Okay. The granules are then funneled. You see the process. There
Yeah.
is kind of funnels showing here.
Yeah.
Plastic granules are funneled, okay, into a rectangular molder with a narrow end. Okay, uh, the molders melt. The molder melts the plastic in order to push it out into a mold. When the plastic has hardened in the mold, the items can be removed and any waste material discarded. You see, injection molder melts plastic and forces it into mold. I mean, it becomes in heavy content or shape, and then the waste is removed. Mold releases product. As you see, the place where a woman is standing. Now, these are the products coming out, and then quality control manager is standing there and observing the product. So far, you have explained the process. Can you just complete the rest of the part?
Okay. Uh, After the molds are released, these are checked by the quality control manager, and the waste material is discarded. Then the end process is like packing. These all molds are packed in a proper way, and after that they are transferred to a storage or a warehouse.
Excellent. Same thing, I will say it again. Before they can be packaged, the finished products have to be checked by for any problems. So next they are placed on a belt and observed by an expert. Okay. If you have any question or something, you can share it with me.